The lost decade was a period between 2000 and about 2013 where the market did not return anything positive over that period of time. So if we started with $1,000 in 2000, that $1,000 would be the same value in 2013 based on the S&P 500. So what we know about this time period is that inflation was real, but we saw no growth. What we also know during this time period, as you can see on the screen here, is that the market went down several times during this period of time. And that's something that's known as sequence of returns risk that we're going to talk about today that we need to make sure we have a plan for. So the big question, the big takeaway that I hope everyone has from this video is how are we going to plan for this if this were to happen again? Now, obviously historical is no indication of the future, right? No matter what past historical returns have been, that is no indication that returns will be the same moving forward. There's one thing that's certain with the market, and it's that it's unknown, and so we have to plan for the unknowns is the idea. But let's just take something back in history to learn something from it to make sure that our investments are properly allocated at this time in our retirement. Because as we all know, when you reach retirement, it's a lot different than all of those working years. And we like to think of this mountain analogy, right? All these years you've been working and you've been saving and saving and saving. You've been in the accumulation phase. Well, now you're in the deaccumulation phase, the distribution phase also known as, where now we have to start taking out money from everything that we've saved all these years. And so what I always say is what got us here may not get us here. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today is coming down this mountain and how something like this lost decade, we can learn lessons from it to be structured in the best way. So let's follow this chart a little bit here from the beginning. So you see in 2000, obviously everyone knows what happened with the dot-com bust and boom during that time. And so as we're seeing here, we're starting to see that bust go down all the way to about 2003. And so at 2003, you can see that the market took a really sharp decline. And so this is where I want to introduce a phase called the double loss. And this is also referencing sequence of returns risk. So when you're in retirement, again, it's a little different. You're now having to take from your investments in retirement because you no longer have an income coming in anymore. And so if you have to take out money from your investments, that's one loss. And if the market's down as well, that's two losses. And so here's how it works. Your investment's here, one loss, two losses. And then the question is do we have enough time to make it up at this point in our retirement? And so that's the question you have to ask yourself. And so if you're in 2003 and you're now retired and you need to take out money from your investments, you're now having to face that double loss. And so if you have $1 million, how much of that is actually going to be yours after this double loss concept? Now, as you can see from 2003 to 2008, we see a big increase and we are excited during that time. We are feeling good. And then all of a sudden it drops again. As we all know, the 2008 financial crisis occurs, and now we're seeing our investments drop nearly in half. And now we are facing that same double loss concept again with our portfolio. And so we do see a rise from there into that 2013 number. But again, we only get back up to where we were in 2000. So we basically had 13 years of no growth. And if anyone knows or can think that far ahead, that is not going to be fun if you see the amount in your account be the same as it is in 13 years. We all want to see some growth. So let's take this situation and apply it to what could this look like in real life, right? So what I'm saying is if this were to happen again, then we need to make sure that our investments are structured in the right way. So one, we're not going 13 years without any returns, but we also want to try to capitalize because there is two really big movements in the market in this chart that we're showing. From 2003 to 2008 and from 2009 to about 2013, we want to take advantage of those upswings in the market. And so there's a couple strategies that we could look at to take advantage of this 13-year current market environment that we're seeing here. One is by taking advantage of the current high interest rate and type investments. Money markets, treasuries, annuities, bonds, a lot of these types of investments may be more attractive in times like this that we're seeing currently where interest rates are higher. And so maybe we look to start to lock in some of those higher rates here. And so we can see some benefits moving forward. So a lot of our clients are interested in locking those up for maybe 5 to 10 years because they may not see higher interest rates in the future as what they're expecting. Now, interest rates certainly could go higher. Nobody knows the answer to that. But if I told you could get a 5% guaranteed rate of return right now, most people would say that's a reasonable rate of return for retirement, and that's probably more than enough of a return to make sure your goals are accomplished. So a lot of the people we work with, we call them the Midwestern millionaires, right? Because they're the millionaire next door. They've got Midwestern values, they're hard workers, they're diligent savers, they're very frugal, and so at this point in their life, they don't need a ton more money. They just need a better plan. And so if we can get a 5% rate of return, all of their goals can be accomplished. They can still have wealth at the end of their time, and they don't have to take on necessarily as much risk as they may need to at this time. So you have to ask yourself, do you want the risk? Do you need the risk? Now, when going with a 5% return, hey, there might not be more upside than that, right? You may be capping yourself there. So if the market does upswing in the future, that would be one of the negatives of doing these types of investments. And so that's what you have to consider for yourself is, does that satisfy your goals? Are you wanting more, or are you satisfied with hitting singles and doubles is the idea? And with most of our clients, we don't recommend, obviously, they put all their money to vehicles like that. We like what's called diversification. Not putting all your eggs in one basket, but having a set plan so we know where to take out money at certain times to put them in the best position. So maybe that's something you consider with your investment plan. Now, I want to make sure I'm very clear that I am pro the market. I am pro S&P 500. I am pro investing in companies for the long term. And you may say, hey, 13 years, that's a long term, but look what you're showing here, Joe. Well, just understand that this is only one time in the market. There's other times in the market where things have gone really well. There's also other times when things have gone very bad. But again, if we have a long-term plan and we're investing for 10 plus years, I'm going to feel more optimistic about this type of investing, about equity type investing. And I'm willing to take that risk is the idea. But again, back to my story, is we do not want to put everything in this bucket is typically what we're advising our clients, unless they're very, very high risk tolerance, which if that's the case and they've got time on their side, like someone like me, maybe I do put all my money in the market. So it's got to depend on your situation. Now, there's a strategy here that I want to mention, and many people have found this interesting and also encouraging during times like this. And so we're going to talk about indexing with a cap. And so we're going to talk about how could you potentially put your money in some type of vehicle where you can have no chance of loss, but still participate in the upside. And for some people, in markets like this especially, that could be really advantageous. And so let's kind of walk through what this could look like. Let's say that you have a cap on the S&P 500 of, let's say, about 10%. And if the S&P 500 goes below 0%, you have no loss. And so obviously the pros and cons of this type of structure is if the market goes up 30%, well, you only get 10%, so that's a negative. Although if the market goes down 20%, you only get 0%. And so with these types of strategies, you can actually do what's called a point-to-point, a one-year point-to-point, where every year this will reset. So it's almost like an escalator. And so with this escalator, you put in $100,000. Let's say that you hit that S&P cap of 10%. Now your $100,000 goes to $110,000. Now, let's say the next year the market goes down 20%. Well, you still stay with that $110,000. And then let's say the next year it only went up 5%. Well, 5% is within 0 to 10. So you're going to get 5%. You're going to get 5% of 110,000, which you're going to go up even more. But you're going to lock in that gain is the idea. And so I want to talk about that indexing strategy for something like this. And again, that indexing strategy, you should not put all your money in there. Again, if the market goes up 30%, you're missing out. But this could be a good opportunity for a portion of your money in addition to a well-diversified portfolio. And so if you look at it during this time, though, if we just kind of play the game from 2000 to 2001, market's down, your 100,000 stays at 100,000. 2001 to 2002, again, it's down, you still stay at 100,000. 2022 to 2023, again, it's down, you still stay at 100,000. So you may think, well, Joe, we haven't got any money on this strategy. Well, yes, but look how much we have not lost during this time period, right? That's almost 50% loss during that time period, that instead of having 50,000, we still have 100,000. So we didn't gain anything, but we also didn't lose anything. Now, as you can see, the market goes up from 2003 all the way up to 2008. So each of these years is where that indexing credit can start to come into play. So your 100,000, now it turns into 110,000 after all this growth. So it was much more than 10%, so we missed out there. But again, that's part of the strategy, the pros and cons of that strategy. From 2004 to 2005, we saw no growth, so we stayed at 110,000. From 2005 to 2006, we may have seen a little growth depending on when we started there. And then from 2006 to 2007, again, we may have not seen any growth, or we could have, depending on where we sit on this scale. 2007 to 2008, we saw another big growth, another 10%. So, we're sitting around 120 to 130, $40,000 right now based on this strategy. Now, if we started in the market here at 100,000 and it went up to here, well, now we have about 200,000. But again, when are we going to know when to jump in the market at this time? So that's almost not something we can consider, because typically if we're in the market, we're going to be in it for the long term, and we got to make sure we prepare for ups and downs, because we don't know when the market's going to go down at what time. And so again, as you repeat here in 2008, market goes down a lot in 2009, but remember, you don't have any loss. You still remain that $120,000 to $140,000 of that index. And then again, each year it goes up, you can get your indexes and so on. And so although you may end up with 100,000 if you just do the S&P 500 from 2000 to 2013, well, with the indexing credit, you're probably at more so 150 to 200,000, and you have no chance of loss during that time. And so you can see how a strategy like that can be really good in an environment like this. Now, as we know, the environments are not always like this, and so you've got to take that with a grain of salt. But I'm just trying to show you that a diversification, some strategies will do better than others in certain environments, and that's why we want to look to have not all of our eggs in one basket and look to have the buzzword of diversification. Now, I hope this helps you plan for the lost decade. Now, again, we don't know if the lost decade is going to happen. We don't know if it's going to happen again. We don't know if it's going to be soon. We have no idea. But the key is to plan for no matter what is thrown at you, because there's the one certain that we know with the market, and then it's unknown. And so making sure we have a plan is first and foremost the key here. And so that's what we'd recommend, is look at many different options. Don't just rely on stocks and bonds. There's so many other vehicles out there. Making sure you're working with a professional who is not captive, meaning that they don't only have to offer one type of investment or one type of product. They can look around the entire marketplace to make sure you get what's truly in your best interest, and making sure that you find what you truly want and need for your retirement. Hope you enjoyed the video today. As an avid viewer of this YouTube channel, we would like to offer you a free copy of our new book that just came out called I Hate Taxes. So if you would like a free copy of this, then go ahead in the description below. You'll be able to click on a link to get that free copy of this new book, I Hate Taxes.